Hey guys, what is up? If you spend any time on Reddit, you'll see people asking about builds, and very commonly you'll see people asking about building twinks, only they know twinks are supposed to be bad, so they'll never ask about how to build a twink. They'll always ask, how do you build a twink hunter? I'm not even sure really what that's supposed to mean most of the time. They're either hosts that are hosting at low level, or they're twinks invading other players at low level. But I had an idea a number of years ago, and that was to go hunting for twinks in other areas other than the starting areas, looking for players looking to build twinks. And this is actually my soul level 26+2. His first invasion ends in a disconnect, and funny enough, I got a bunch of hate messages from that guy. He filled up my Steam profile with accusations of cheating. It really runs the gamut. I may take some screenshots and post them below. We'll have to see. But I was enthused, so I switched over to my soul level 31. That's this character here, because he's a much better developed twink. And I knew if I was going to go hunting hosts, I'd probably run into my fair share of overleveled phantoms. And actually, the story here is kind of interesting, because I started this project probably 2.5 years ago. I started trying to invade hosts that were building twinks, and I was on PS4 at the time. This was probably like back in 2017, and I used to get a crazy number of invasions in the Grand Archives and some other places that typically were higher level. And unfortunately, I lost the footage, and truthfully, the footage wouldn't be very good anymore anyway. So I decided I'd try it again, and I wouldn't say I got a ton of invasions, but they were more frequent than you might imagine. Now, the really funny thing is, when I embarked on this project years ago, I was actually kind of disgusted by the results of what I found. I would go invading people that were building twinks, and I would find over and over the same routine. The host would be hiding back at the bonfire while his 3 overleveled phantoms would go and beat the entire level for him. I'm not kidding. This is like 90% of the cases. And in fact, I had developed an entire strategy for managing these crews where I'd use the obscuring ring, and I would actually rush back to the bonfire to go and kill the host before any of the phantoms realized what was up and could run back and protect him. And of course, these hosts were always really bad players. And I assumed that all they did was they would just wait for the rest of the crew to beat the level, and with the PvE all dead, would rush to the boss and then hang back and let the 3 overleveled phantoms beat the boss for them. And it was kind of funny, because a lot of times when you hear people defending twinks on Reddit, they say things like, oh yeah, well, at least I built my twink the right way. Nobody dropped me my rings, my weapons, whatever. I got it fair and square, which when you think about it is really kind of a dumb argument anyway, because how does that make it any more fair to the host that you're invading with your overleveled or overpowered equipment, I should say. So it was never a very good argument to begin with, but based on the experience that I had, it became an even worse argument, because nobody was building these twinks themselves. They were all having their crews help them. So here in this invasion, I noticed, well, actually, if I take a step back and rather than talk about this specific invasion, invading now at soul level 30 in the Grand Archives, I got an interesting mix. I got some crews, I got some solo hosts. This crew here, you notice the Phantom is obviously over leveled, and he is using projected heal to protect the host. And this is an incredibly difficult environment for me to try to manage these guys. Plus, they're being pretty passive. They wouldn't venture into the PvE while I was around. This invasion was actually quite lengthy. And here, I do decide to use one Siegfried. I generally don't like to use them. I knew the Phantom was there, but obviously I screwed up my roll. And so at this point, I'm almost out of Estus. And because this guy's a Faith build, he's been able to keep healing himself, healing the host, and I've not really been able to put a meaningful dent in their Estus. Unfortunately, he's also pretty laggy too here, as you can see, so it's been difficult to punish him. So laggy with a Faith build, with a parry shield and a straight sword, and overleveled, is really a difficult battle. I think here I finally managed to run him down out of his Estus, but it ended up being just a little bit too late. I end up dying here to this Phantom, which was really quite aggravating to me. So obviously he got off the projected heal, which really sucks because I think because he's so level or high level and because of the poor scaling in the game, even with at his high level, projected heal just heals so much damage. And so I wasn't really able to make enough of a dent in their Estus, and I wasn't able to stop him from using projected heal there because I was fishing around in my inventory. I think he's out of Estus at this point. He probably keeps everything in Ashen Estus just to carry his teammate. And as friendly as the fight started off, I get the point down at the end, but I filed that away, and we'll see that pay off here in a little while. I ran into a few hosts like this. I don't know if they're building twinks like to invade people or if they're building twinks because they're going to host at low level. But there were kind of a category of players like this that I didn't think were especially good. I definitely ran into some good players though. There was one guy, I actually ended up eliminating the fight from the video just because it wasn't that interesting. But he was a really good player with Black Knight Shield and Ring Knight Straight Sword. See, the things with like the rope firebombs make me think that this guy's planning on invading with this build. The other interesting thing is if you're building a twink, you don't really have to go into the archives. The archives, by the time you get to the archives, you can get to like, I think 14 Estus plus 9. And then to get to 15 Estus or to get to plus 10, you have to go into the archives, which means you have to beat a bunch of bosses like Aldrich. You have to go all the way through Profane Capital. Like there's a bunch of things you don't have to do if you're willing to stop with a twink at 14 Estus plus 9. So kind of curious what a lot of these guys were thinking. So maybe they're just playing the game normally. I'm just not really sure what they were doing. The host name in this case is Do Not Bow, which is actually kind of funny. I'm assuming that's a name for an invader. I mean, it's almost gotta be. Went for a bunch of backstabs here, and I obviously whiffed quite a few, but I think I pick up my game here in just a moment. That was a smart move to know that I was going to go for the roll catch there, and that's something you've always got to watch when you try to roll catch with weapons like that have no hyper armor. Good players will predict you on that and will trade, so I file that away for later, but it ends up not really mattering. GG. So after doing this for a while in the archives, I kind of got bored and I thought, well, it'd be fun actually maybe to go do some spear invasions. Now I haven't killed Midir on this build, so I just had to settle for dropping my red sign with a password. I'd always wondered if that actually worked, if you could put a red sign down with a password so that people don't summon you in, or I've had salty people actually summon you into their world just as they go into the boss fog, presumably to try to reduce the odds of fighting a human opponent. So whenever I put my red sign down, I always do it with a password, but I usually did it in conjunction with the Covenant, so I wasn't sure what was responsible for summoning me. I can confirm now 100%, a red sign with password protection will still allow you to get summoned in as a spear. So this first guy here, another lap twink, again, there's like 7 or 8 lap twinks that I invaded. He actually inspired me. I saw here that he had the Gru Spear, and he put poison on it, which, you know, at low levels when you're not doing a ton of damage is always a really solid strategy. So I actually mirrored him here. I had started off with the Dragon Slayer axe, but truthfully I really don't like to use that too much unless I really have to, like it's a gank or somebody else is using it, just because it does so much damage. And frankly, the spear probably synergizes a bit better with a spear build anyway, since most of what you're doing is running people down and trying to prevent them from healing. I don't have the Hornet Ring on here. I think I had to go to Sun Princess because I also have no regen, so my backstabs aren't doing shit for damage. But that's okay because I'm still able to put people under a ton of pressure. And I just had to change the Undead Hunter timing. But I got a lot better about that, being able to get the timing of that without the Hornet Ring backstab, which changes the timing considerably. And he got salty and disconnected. Well, here we go. Yet another lap twink. I had some fun with this guy. Now, his problem was he summoned Patches. I think if he had not summoned Patches, he probably would have been okay. But I have to say, the Gru Spear with poison on it is really awesome. It poisons people after, I think, like 2 or 3 hits usually. And you can see here, he's smart enough to have Moss on him, but even just having the Moss and Mossing, he has to stand there and take a couple R1s from me. It's funny now because of mods like Wex Dust on PC. What I was doing here in the archives, you could actually do in a far more efficient fashion than I have been, which is to just so in Wex Dust you can configure which areas are eligible for invasion and which ones aren't, so you can close out the normal low-level areas and only leave open later areas that you want, and it would make tracking these kinds of parties way easier. Obviously not spear fights, but everything else. I elected not to do that. I do have Wex Dust installed, but I just did these as like normal area invasions. And this is the last fight, and praise Jesus, this is the same crew that I ran into the archives. This is literally like 2 hours later. I realized it's the same group that I saw in the archives. Now I have a much bigger advantage than I would otherwise, and I think this is the fight where I realized just how much healing this this Phantom is getting out of projected heal. Like, I think he's healing about half their health, and based on how much health they both have, I would guess that his projected heal is probably healing somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 to 800 HP per cast, which is just frankly ridiculous. He's probably got tons of attunement, so he gets tons of casts, and again, most of his Estus and Ashen Estus. So I already know I've got my work cut out for me, but at this point, I'm just grateful to even have the opportunity to fight these guys again. The other interesting thing I was thinking about here is that because I'm soul level 31, I'm actually at risk of invading all the way up to like soul level 63, 64 as a spear, but because my weapon upgrade is only at +3, I don't have to worry about that so much because I can only invade up to +4, and quite frankly, nobody's going to come in at level 60 at +4 unless they were specifically targeting me if I did this more regularly. And unfortunately, on PC, that is actually kind of the case, not at this level, but on my soul level 90 builds, there are players that deliberately target me, and I could probably make a whole other video just about that, but the fact that I'm at +3 protects me from having to invade players at like soul level 60, but definitely could invade like a 40 +4, which would be really tough for me. I saw that turn and burn coming. I see him shifting around. He's trying to find space to heal for his miracles. And unfortunately, my stamina management here is kind of bad because I'm so used to doing spear fights with higher level characters and having a lot more stamina. That felt good. Soul level 537, man. Just carrying this guy through the game. At this point, there's obviously not a whole lot this guy's going to be able to do. Now the panic heals start. So one of the nice things about the S stock is if somebody just stops right in your face and tries to heal, you can often get the punish off before they can even get the heal off. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I would definitely recommend giving this a try. Try invading these areas with your twinks. Take care now.